Warren, Medical Gear Outfitters, and Colby Valve.
Redo that again, Aaron.
I don't know why that's like the second time you've gone quiet like that.
Let's try it again. This episode of the
You're still quiet.
Still quiet.
Boy, you're up.
Put your face up to.
It's right there. It's right there.
You're back.
This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren, Medical Gear Outfitters, and Colby Valve.
Off-Road Podcast, episode 345. The Great Diesel Debate.
I'm in the wrong show notes.
Ladies and gentlemen, live.
Yeah.
podcasting.
I like the
That's
host.
something-
Aaron can't figure out how directional mic works, and Jeremy can't figure out the show notes. Wow, this debate's going to be easy.
All right. Quiet. Tonight, Aaron does some underlanding. Jeremy falls on his butt. Ben teaches a class, and Coy cannot dry canvas.
It fell apart.
Oh, no. What in the world's going on?
I'm out. No.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast, a podcast about everything off-road. We cover the news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. Your hosts tonight are Aaron, Jeremy, and my name is Ben, and we are joined by Andy from Crankshaft Culture, Coy from the Horsepower Hour, and Scott from Overland Journal. And welcome to the show.
Man. You think with 345 episodes we'd have this down by now?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to the horse hour. What's that all about?
I just love my friends here on the 4x4 podcast.
Oh boy.
Oh, man. Let's start off with Coy. What have you been up to, Coy?
So I think everybody's listened to our snow camping episode from last week, and if you haven't, you should. The giant canvas wall tent that I brought. So I decided to pop that up with some rope since the framing is still at Aaron's house. And I went to dry that, and then we had this giant cold spell. So it's just been frozen all week. But I checked the weather, and I had a sweet window on Saturday morning. I'm like, all right, wood stove's in. Saturday morning, I'm going to fire up the wood stove. It doesn't rain till 2. Get this sucker dried out, fold up, storage. My son had a basketball game. His games are always at 2, so it was perfect timing. I got up about 9. I'm kind of putzing around, getting my coffee, getting ready to go outside, getting some firewood together. And my wife says, you need to get ready because we got to leave. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, this game's at 10:30. Of course. So it was super awesome because then it started raining. I'm like, I'm just going to leave it up because I got another window next Sunday, except for we're having insane rain and like monster winds right now. So about 4:00 this morning, I woke up and, because fat guys like me just get acid reflux and have to wake up at 4 a.m. to sleep. But I look out the window and this thing is just blowing like crazy. And I'm like, I have to do it. So I went ahead to put my work clothes on because I got to get up at 5:30 anyways. Piled that thing all up, and luckily the wind there, just a corner of it was over some grass that kind of got muddy, and the wind is just flapping that canvas down. Mud is just, it looked like a 10-month-old that had like a blowout, just mud all up. It was just, I'm just standing there looking at it, like now I have to wash it and then dry it. So I just piled it up, bear hugged it into my shop, and it's just laying there. I have a small window. On Sunday, we'll get this thing dried out, stored. So you're welcome for bringing the tents, guys.
Thanks for bringing that, Coy.
You enjoyed
Thanks.
it. It's only been a week.
Probably never going to make it again, will it?
I have to use it.
Otherwise, why do you have it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Scott, have you done anything in the off-road world in the past week or so?
Yeah, we had a 392 Wrangler. That was fun.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it rips.
What did you do with it?
Well, we took it out. We wanted to just test out the vehicle and get a sense for how it works. We've driven a lot of Hemi-powered AEV trucks in the past, but a factory Hemi, and it says 4.5 seconds, 0 to 60, and it does it. So
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, this is interesting though. We we had some real trouble with the Mopar winch mount. So it's just not up to the rating of most winches that they recommend for the mount. So it was literally trying to peel it off the front of the Jeep. So we actually are installing a worn one instead because
Whoa.
yeah. Yeah, we're doing winch testing with the vehicle. So we're testing a bunch of different winches. We're testing them all to their rated load limit. Several of them are not making it to their rated load limit, which is interesting. And then we're torture testing the winches too. We're running them up and down a hill 3 times until they're. We had one at 240 degrees at the motor.
Yikes.
So, yeah. So it's been a good test.
Are you winching any vehicles up into a tree just to
Yeah,
stuck it straight up?
That's
part of the test.
I
That's
think
the
we all want to do that so bad.
Our lawyers love that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Just don't stand underneath it. There you go.
Yeah, so that was an interesting revelation that the factory mount can't take a 10,000 pound pole. So
Yeah. That's really interesting.
That's not good.
That's why it's a
yeah,
Jeep.
those things happen. That's the results of the tests like that. So, and I mean, it's not a Jeep product; it's a Mopar thing. So who knows who makes it for them? But it's not a factory mount. So
Andy's shaking his head down there, so it's not him.
I checked.
Andy, what have you done this past week?
Oh boy, what have I done this past week? I went to the 2022 Portland International Auto Show, of which there were plenty of four-wheel drives. And then I have not worked on a four-wheel drive, which is a breath of fresh air because lately, like the last 3 months, that's all I've done is worked on a four-wheel drive vehicle, of which I have a few. So it was refreshing to be like, wow, I don't have bloody knuckles. The underneath of my nails are remarkably clean. So yeah, the only thing I've done with four-wheel drives is drive them, which is good, but haven't done any off-roading this week. But hopefully that'll change. Actually, that should change next week. So a little bit of four-wheel drive. Got a winching class out at the Oregon coast, the Clatsop County Sons of Beaches. That is the name of the club. Great group of people, and putting on a winching demonstration for those people. It's free, so if anybody watching wants to go, it's at the Napa and Seaside, Oregon. Come on down, learn a thing or two. I learn a thing or two every time I do one. So,
How about you, Ben?
I helped teach a recovery class for beginners. So it was the back to your bare basic necessities for recovery. So we went over all those basic things that you should have, including a shovel. I did that class with Dan Cronin from Northwest Overland. It was a fun class. And then I got to plug the next class, which is Andy's coming up on the 26th of March to do a winching class. And again, it's free. My favorite part about this class was we gave away some stuff, and each bag was oriented towards the gear we were giving away, and we gave away an ARB compressor.
nice.
So, yeah. So
I commented on your company Facebook page today, Ben. Did you see my comment?
yes, I did, and I chose to ignore it.
Oh man. I said that all I saw were Jeeps and Toyotas at this beginner's recovery class.
There was a Humvee.
Draw your own conclusion.
Yeah, there was a Humvee there.
I don't know if you could be making too many recovery jokes with the Jeeps and Toyotas.
Oh, there we go.
Buffer here before you could jump back in. Like,
Yeah.
It's the tires, not the truck.
yeah, I mean,
We all know
still,
That's
There
the
needs
best
to be
excuse I've ever heard. And then I started tearing into the trailer. We're actually taking the teardrop. We're going camping this next weekend, and
Awesome.
I've got some
Where
wood
you
rot
going?
that I've got to fix. Just what is it? Some state park with my wife and some friends. It's her birthday weekend, so I
Nice.
got to make her happy and take her camping.
You already have wood rot in that thing?
There was the membrane got damaged in the front corner, and it rotted out one of the boards. So fortunately enough, it's only 6 bolts or leg screws I've got to undo and replace it. So should be a quick fix. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. I'm going to dig into it tomorrow now that I have the batteries for my drill. What about you, Jeremy?
Well, I just want to point out that you had just said some famous last words. But anyway,
Yes.
I didn't do a whole lot except for I got the Colby valve that I just went ahead and installed on in my spare tire and on the tire carrier, and I'm ashamed to say that I was pulling on the, so I got some that I have non-TPMS valve stems in my tires already, so I was just gonna pull the valve stem out. So I just got some vice grips on it and started yanking on it, and then I kept pulling it a little bit harder, and then I just I just yanked it, and I definitely was not expecting it to come loose, and I went flying backwards onto my butt. That's about all I did this weekend.
Physics wins every time.
It does. I don't know why I didn't have a better base in my stance when I was pulling on that thing. I just, I don't know what the heck I was thinking.
Are you gonna have to borrow Ben's tailbone donut?
No, I didn't hit that hard.
That's good.
How about you, Aaron? What have you been up to?
I got all of my wet stuff put away and dried out, and most of it's all put back away. I just still have to get my sleeping bag. I think I'm going to launder my sleeping bag just to get it nice and fresh, but that camp really got my gear wet. Besides that, I left work early today to do some underlanding. Got to get the rotohammer out and chisel out some of my basement floor to snake some of the old 100-year-old drains under my basement, because our basement is flooding today. So from all that rain. Yeah. So super fun. A lot of good times there. So, oh, well, that's how that goes. 100-year-old houses.
For anybody that's not familiar, we're getting the Pineapple Express, as they call it, in the Pacific Northwest. We are in an atmospheric river, and we're getting absolutely dumped on. Like you could have commuted in a canoe today. So
yeah, I've got a moat around my work. It's kind of nice.
Mm.
Stay away, customers. I don't want you.
Yeah, lower the drawbridge.
I'll tell you what, today was not the day to commute on a motorcycle. Man,
that'd be terrible.
Yeah, even with good rain gear, I was pretty wet when I got to work.
We also want to thank our...
Sorry, Coy, you had something?
I said, you guys have rain gear?
Well, from the one guy that works outside most of the time, I would assume you would have rain gear too.
No,
I don't know. I'm in Arizona. Rain gear?
You guys have rain?
Not really.
We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month. There you go. That is the March Patch of the Month, Believe in a Higher Power. So those are high powers. Little play on words there. Patriot Patch just kills it every month. And I threw this one in there just thinking about Ukraine this week. So it is the Wolverines patch. I feel like that's applicable to their situation over there, where the citizens are taking up arms and fighting against the enemy at the borders. That's one of my favorite patches of theirs, the Wolverines one. Yeah. I thought I had one up here, but it's not up there.
Have tire troubles ever left you deflated? Colby Valve has got you covered. Ever have a valve stem leak? Colby Valve makes reusable and easily replaceable valve stems that don't require you to remove your tire from the wheel. They work with your off-road rig, ATV, side-by-side, commuter vehicle, or even your tractor. Never be left stranded again because of a busted valve stem. They also have a tire repair kit for those punctures that keep you away from doing your favorite thing, wheeling. Make sure to check out colbyvalve.com or ask for them at your local off-road products store.
I'm not sure.
All
I get
right,
that
so our
comment,
new
Aaron.
it's from the original
Red,
Wolf. It's
Oh,
from Red
yeah,
Dawn.
Red Dawn. Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. I remember that quote now.
Yeah. I think their truck was overheating, so they peed in the radiator to cool it off, or on the radiator to cool it off.
It got bullet holes in it.
Something, yeah. So this first article is from Jalopnik, and it is about Ford not taking any more orders on the Maverick. So I keep talking to family members and friends about this Maverick. I'm pretty excited about this truck, even though it doesn't necessarily fit what I do. I really feel like it's going to fit a lot of people's needs, and it's super fuel efficient and things like that. It's pretty neat. So apparently the demand for the Maverick is higher than Ford can produce right now, and they've closed off orders until mid 2022. So that's what, 3-4 months from now. They are saying that some inventory is going to keep trickling into dealers while they also are trying to fulfill their special orders, or whatever you call that when you go to the dealership and buy a car and have it ordered from the factory. So
Yeah,
the,
great truck.
Yeah, the $20,000 starting price has made them very appealing. So I'm laughing at this comment here. So Theo says he built a Maverick this morning while he was using the restroom. So it's amazing what you can do with a smartphone.
I will have to say I saw one in person at the Portland Auto Show. It's a really interesting size, and they had a Ranger, and they also had the F-150 and Super Duty, and I dig it. I like a smaller vehicle, and I thought, yeah, that's cool. I'd take mine with the EcoBoost all-wheel drive, but it's pretty neat. So,
Yeah, I've seen one in the
Maverick
wild.
ST.
yeah, they
So-
should do an ST.
Yeah, it drives great, gets great gas mileage. That EcoBoost is super fun. The all-wheel drive is different than most all-wheel drives, so the technology is pretty good. So it actually has effectively a locker in the rear, so with how it works.
Yeah, I've seen one in the wild, and I was impressed by it, and it was that burnt orange color that I like. So
Yeah, nice.
yeah,
You think the dealer inventory that's actually going to still show up, the dealers are going to do like they've been doing with the Broncos and everything else, where they'll have a couple, but they'll be 38 grand for base.
I don't know. I know we talked a couple weeks ago about Ford cracking down on that, specifically for the Bronco. And I was actually on Facebook last night reading like the comments in an advertisement for the Hyundai Santa Cruz, which is kind of a competitor, but it's a more expensive competitor. And some people in the comments were saying that Ford was marking up the Maverick, and other people were saying that they weren't marking up the Maverick. So I guess it just varies by dealer. So
which is
what
we talked about last week about for the big car companies coming down on their dealers for up marking their vehicles.
The last part here is that the chip shortages are keeping Ford from being able to produce all the Mavericks that they're actually trying to produce, so at the normal rate. So,
And speaking of chip shortages, just a little preview into the next article here. So the Broncos are stacking up. This article comes from the Auto Blog, and Broncos are stacking up in the holding lots. Ben, can you go ahead and share that video without the sound?
I will try. Is it the Bronco Mountain one? Correct.
yes,
Yeah.
Bronco Mountain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ford is open. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy. I didn't know you were taking that
you
one.
go ahead, Aaron.
Send it.
Okay.
So Ford.
For Christ's sake, do you want me to do it? No, I'm kidding.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. So Ford is openly saying that the lack of chips is, of course, when we open up another screen, it has input here.
It's
I
got
could really go for a chalet right now.
There we go. So it's over. So Ford is openly saying that the lack of chips is holding up Bronco protection. So if you're watching this with us, there are hundreds of Broncos in this video. I wouldn't be surprised if it surpassed 1,000 Broncos in this holding lot. It's phenomenal how many they've got stacked in there.
there is my Bronco sitting in a lot waiting for
Yeah.
chip.
So Ford says that they are keeping their customers informed of the status of their vehicles. But the customers are saying that they aren't being informed. I've got 3 quotes here. One says, I think they could be communicating better. Another one says that they haven't got any transparency on Ford's end. And the last one says that Ford's forthright is non-existent. So we not entirely sure if some people are exaggerating or if Ford isn't actually given enough details. But some of the 2020 buyers of the Broncos, yeah, look at that truck. Speaking of diesel trucks, that one's got the payload that we're going to talk about. Some of the 2020 buyers are very cynical because they haven't gotten their Broncos, while other people have been buying theirs straight off the lot. It shows up to the lot and they're able to go and pick one up. So some people are pretty upset about that.
Oh, and I think it comes down to the packages they ordered too, correct?
Yeah, it certainly could. So, and it could be that the dealer was allotted their Bronco prior to them ordering their Bronco in 2020. They just don't realize that the dealer got theirs before them in line. And so, yeah.
Well, and I heard some of the people were having issues with their hard tops, and it caused their vehicles to get a delay. And that's probably a lot of people's problem is their hard top delay.
Yeah.
Do you believe that this is 100% chip shortage, or do you think that Ford's kind of like this is in their favor? It's supply and demand, like makes people want them even more.
Well, I don't think, but Ford's not getting paid anymore. Just the dealers are the ones that are able to mark it up more. So Ford gets their cut no matter what. I hear your point, though. It does make them more desirable to people.
I have a feeling Ford to get rid of everyone that they're making. So I highly doubt that.
It just seems like that Ford should be able to be like, look, sorry, civilians, we're going to go ahead and not deliver those ones that the dealers ordered to fill your guys' order. Like that kind of seems like it'd be the right thing to do, but they're not doing that at all.
Yeah.
That article, it was kind of boring, so I didn't put it in as bullet points, but the article was breaking down how Ford has said that they are delivering. It said we're doing this percentage to dealers, this percentage to people who have already bought them, and then this percentage for something else. So they had 3 different percentages of how they were breaking it down and fulfilling orders.
It just seems like when they're this far behind, there should be 0% going to dealers, especially the way dealers have been marking them up. Like they should just be filling orders at this point.
It's a good, yeah, but they have to keep the dealers somewhat happy.
No, they don't.
Oh, yes, they do. Trust me, I work for a company that does, distribution through multi-step distribution, and making sure your customers who are like, buying all these things from you, is important. Granted, it's also important to keep the end user happy. So, because they're the ones really voting with their pocketbooks, but it does, keeping your dealer network happy is also very important.
Yeah.
Go prepared with Warren Industries. They produced the first recreational winch in 1959 and lead the industry with their dedication to quality and reliability. When you dig yourself in deep, make sure you have the right tools to get yourself out. Get Warren equipped and go where others can't. Now, let's get ready for adventure and head into our main topic.
But wait, before we start that, Scott, you were on before we had the Fast 5 facts, and we've got to ask you the Fast 5 facts.
Okay.
So, new or old vehicle?
Oh, it was always old, but man, the best four-wheel drives ever made are being made right now. So, new vehicle.
Summer or winter camping?
I prefer summer, but somehow always get stuck on an ice cap somewhere.
Rock, sand, snow, or mud?
Give me the rocks.
And favorite vehicle brand?
Oh, like reluctantly, I have to say Toyota.
And favorite tire?
Okay, if it's favorite, it's going to be an XCL. Not the best tire, but that's my favorite.
What brand is that?
Michelin makes the XCL.
Isn't that like the old school overlanding tire, super skinny or
Yeah,
something
totally.
like that?
Totally. They're ridiculous. Yeah, don't anybody buy them. Don't anybody buy them based on that.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it's totally my favorite.
Favorite doesn't always mean best.
That's right.
I mean,
in
look
this
at the-
case, in this case, it does not.
Right.
So,
XZL
yeah, XCL. So,
Zebra.
yeah, you'd see them on G wagons from the Canadian military. You'd see them on like Camel Trophy vehicles or old school Defenders. They're on a lot of military vehicles, tall, skinny. But
It's that same tread pattern you see on like 6x6 log trucks.
Totally, yeah,
really aggressive.
totally.
I'm pulling it up because I just had to see it, and I'm sharing. Here's a Google image search of that tire right there.
There you go.
That is that's the favorite tire for the LMTV owners as well. The XZL.
Oh.
Yeah,
That was the coveted tire to have on your LMTV. So there you
That
go.
tire looks like to me just wants to kill you in the ice and snow.
it does. Yeah, even the rain, even on the rain. Like you want to talk about lift throttle oversteer in a Defender? Like it's scary. It's frightening. Yeah, frightening.
Brake steering.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, this week we have a very special episode. So this week we are having the diesel debate. So I just wanted to throw this out there before we go ahead and start. I just want to say that the hosts and guests may or may not agree with the side that they're arguing for. The sides were chosen for each debater, and they are arguing their points whether or not they agree with their given side. No winners are going to be declared. The decision to buy a diesel vehicle is up to you. We just want to provide some talking points from both sides. So prepare to be informed and hopefully entertained.
There we go.
So we could kick it off with the pro side. So the way we're going to kind of do this is throw out a pro. Then the con side is going to have a chance to rebut, and then the con side is going to throw out their next point and rinse and repeat until the end.
All right. Well, I'll kick it off here.
Should I guess maybe, sorry, Andy.
No,
I guess
fine.
I should probably say who's on the pro and the con side. So on the pro side, we have Ben, we have Andy and Coy. And then on the con side, we have Aaron, Scott, and myself.
Oh, and I don't know if it's this way for, I would assume the listeners out there, but the cons are on the top and the pros are on the bottom in the video. Not intentional.
That is true. Yes. Oh, really? It wasn't intentional?
No. And also I put these in alphabetical order. So that's how it's kind of going to go here.
I would also like to point out that we missed a great opportunity to use Rocky theme music here.
Oh. I would also like to point out in the show notes, it's ABC, ABC, ABC.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I saw that.
ABC.
It's wildly confusing for some people.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should I kick this off then?
Do it.
All right. So we're going to start in the pro column here. The pro column is for veggie diesel or biodiesel, as it's often called. Of course, some of the pros of biodiesel or veggie diesel are that it's more of a renewable resource. You're not dealing with fossil fuels quite as much. You know, in Oregon, we have a mandatory bio blend right now. There are places you can get full-on biodiesel. Some people love it. I've seen it made out of all kinds of things, including the leftovers of chocolate. So it's more sustainable. That's what I'm going to say.
Is there is there any other thing to add to that before I rebuttal that?
I will add what I think is the most important thing about biodiesel. If it's made from the right fry oil and they drive by, it
Mm.
smells delicious.
So good.
There we
So
go.
good. So good. I sometimes just want an old fashioned donut. Sometimes I want McDonald's fries.
Do you
All right,
tailor
well-
your fuel choice for what mood you're in that day?
Yeah.
That'd be nice. Well, so I'm gonna give some rebuttal to that. So not everybody has the ability to manufacture veggie oils themselves. I have a friend over in the Spokane area, and he's been doing it for a long time. In fact, they had I think it was a toter home that they would tow the race car around with. That they just carried like one of those big fuel containers in the back of it full of that. So if you can imagine having to have a way to store all that fuel so that you can use it, it's just like having a gas station at home. It's not for everybody. Also, if you're running fry oil, you have to have like some sort of heater to heat up your fuel because it can gel up on you and cause some issues if you're not in the perfect climate. And also, it's going to void your warranty. I don't think anybody's really probably running vegetable oil in their new Jeep Gladiator truck diesel.
I will say, even though I'm supposed to be in the pro side of this, like my wife's father had converted a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel over to it back in the 80s. And his problem was he couldn't keep the filters from clogging. Maybe the filters have gotten better. Maybe the refinement has gotten better. But I know that used to be a problem. I do know that in Eugene, Oregon, there's a fantastic gas station that has like 4 varieties of diesel fuel, and they're bio. Like they have like 3 kinds of bio. And they also have really good baked goods there for whatever it's worth. But anyway.
People care about warranties. That's my rebuttal right there to that.
Wait, people have warranties?
So Aaron, kind of going off of you with the having the heater in the tank for the veggie oil. Obviously the biodiesel from gas stations is a little different, but most of those people that actually run the veggie oil actually have 2 tanks too. So you're still have to go and buy regular diesel, and then you run the regular diesel until it warms up enough until you can run the veggie oil, and then you switch over tanks. So it just adds a lot of complexity.
Yeah, and you can't travel outside of, pretty much outside of the United States. You can't find. Imagine rocking up to a little taco joint in Baja and saying, hey, can I pump out all your oil? It's just, you just really can't find it outside of the U.S. So
yeah, and I would assume that a lot of those countries probably repurpose that oil for other things anyways. Maybe they're
totally
heating oil for them. Yeah, so
totally.
they're not going to give it to you for free to drive your car on.
No.
All right. Well, speaking of complicated parts, Jeremy, that's going to be our next topic here. And here's our picture: a compound turbo. That looks super complicated. If you don't know what you're looking at, Coy, don't talk about that at all. I'm sure you're going to say it. Complicated parts. So diesel engines, as we all know, run a lot higher compression. So you got to make sure things are dialed in really well. You've got to make sure that things are torqued well. They've also got complicated intake systems. As you can see here, we've got an intake coming into one turbo, going into a second turbo, probably to an intercooler before then it gets into the intake. Some older turbos have intake heaters instead of glow plugs, so that's something you got to worry about. Or they've got just glow plugs in general. That's not something a car or a gas car has. So they require water filters for the fuel system. No gas vehicle needs a water filter. That's just one more thing you got to worry about for maintenance is a water filter. You got to drain it in the winter. And then these newer trucks have diesel particulate filters on them that have to be run through a regen system, or they'll have a DEF tank that if you run that DEF tank dry, it puts you into limp mode, and nobody likes their vehicle in limp mode.
Listen, I know Ben is supposed to rebuttal this, and as Kanye said, I'm gonna let him finish. But there should be a distinction made here between old diesels and new diesels, because new diesels are way more complicated than old diesels, which were pretty not complicated. Oh, anyway, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. So, yeah, your average lifespan of a diesel is a lot longer. And then, like Andy mentioned, the older ones, the mechanically injected ones, less parts, less if you don't have a turbo diesel, and then also you don't have to deal with DEF with an older one, and if you have a newer one, and you are avoiding dealing with the EPA, you can do a DEF delete. I do believe you have to go through Canada for that. So
if you have an older one and you don't have an
DEF.
intercooler or even a turbo, you also don't have to worry about horsepower or torque because it's not going to make any of those.
Fair point.
Fair
point.
Yeah,
I would add to that. While the parts on a diesel are complicated, pop the hood on any modern car and tell me it's not complicated. Is it more? Is it less? It feels like a moot point at a certain level.
Yeah, if Andy's gonna break sides, I'm gonna jump sides here also. My wife's pickup truck is a 3.5 twin turbo EcoBoost gas motor, which is probably just as complicated as any modern diesel, minus a
It's
depth
not
tank.
more.
If not more. If not more. I will say, as the owner of 3 vehicles with injection pumps, those little injection pumps are like little inner workings of their own thing. So they are pretty complicated, depending on which kind of vehicle you have, but still.
Well, let's since we're talking complicated, why don't we talk about fuel economy, which is, you can get very complicated between vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So the average fuel efficiency versus diesel versus gasoline, you're talking 10 to 15% more energy than gasoline. So you can get about 20 to 35% farther on a gallon of fuel than their gasoline counterparts. That's a good chunk of fuel economy, as long as you're not towing.
I'm questioning your math here. So you have 10 to 15% more energy, so you can get 35.
The fuel contains 10 to 15% more energy than it does gasoline, and the diesel engines can take that and get 20 to 35% farther on a gallon of diesel versus gasoline.
I'm still questioning your math there, but
it's what my research showed on the Googles.
Yeah, somebody get out their TI-85. Let's get this right.
What do you got, Coy?
Sorry, I really have nothing to add to what Ben said there. I was doing 4 things at once, but yeah, fuel economy is undisputably better in diesels.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Especially, I mean, I'm jumping sides, but my daily driver is a 3-liter GMC little 3-liter turbo diesel. Like, it's a full size truck with a 6.5-foot bed, and my average is that 24 miles per gallon. That's unbelievable. It's like totally unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I was doing some comparison within the same vehicle. So for ease, I just picked the new Wrangler, 2021 Wrangler. So I guess not the newest Wrangler, but for the gas model, you had 21 was the combined fuel economy. For the diesel model, it was 23. So I kind of went ahead and did a little bit more math and figured out what the average diesel price was around me, and gas price. So I won't bore you with all the math, but essentially the diesel ran for about 16.4 cents per mile right now. The gas version ran at 17.1 cents per mile. So
I don't know what that means,
but to quantify that for you, in order to pay off your upgrade to the diesel engine in the Wrangler, you would have to drive 568,000 miles before you reaped the benefit of that increased gas mileage.
500.
Just to be-
How many more? How many?
Is that
Let me
just
jump in
over
there.
$1 million? Just over $500,000?
Just
I
over
would
half a
like
million.
to see that price difference worked out after we all have 38s on this Wrangler and see where our mileage is at. Because the gas one's getting 12 miles a gallon, the diesel one made it down to 19.
Yeah.
I don't
what
know.
mean?
You're speculating pretty heavily there.
Yeah. Then it only goes to 422,000.
Right.
And the UPS truck that delivers my stuff gets better mileage than all of our 4-wheel drives except for Andy's, which is probably diesel anyways. So
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, we have to peg the argument somewhere, and so within a very good off-roader, the Wranglers, I think that's a good place to make the comparison. I'm not arguing that when you're hauling really heavy loads that a diesel is better, because obviously it is. That's why everybody who tows, they opt towards the diesel if they're going to be towing a heavy load. But I mean, we're talking 4x4 right now.
but you're also only comparing new on new. Like I got a buddy, he has a 89, OJ Bronco. He had an old tired 351 in there. He went ahead and threw a 4BT out of like a Franz bread truck, and
Oh,
he gets
yeah.
25 miles a gallon on 35s all the time.
Yeah. Hell,
How many?
yeah,
How
totally.
many?
What's that?
What's the fuel
25,
economy?
he said.
He gets
25.
25 miles a gallon all the
25.
time.
Yeah, 25. Talk
And
to
with the 350,
talk to Jen and
351, he was probably getting 12.
at,
double.
at best.
Jay.
Our friends Jen and Jared, who run the Pioneering Spirit, they shipped their 4BT powered Jeep Wrangler to Africa and traveled around Africa in it, and I know they got pretty decent fuel economy with it. But yeah, I mean, and let's face it, right? We can argue the fact that brand new gas, brand new diesel, which makes more sense, right? But in the end of it, like, which is going to be better for what you're wanting to do too, or which are you going to enjoy more, right? I mean, if you're buying a Wrangler for the financial benefits, then you're buying the wrong vehicle anyway. So
I'm not saying you're buying it for the financial benefits. I'm just saying if you're going to pick between the two of them.
Let's not forget clout factor, because I mean, I roll up in the diesel one, getting better mileage, and you roll up in your gas one. Sure, it may take me 500,000 miles to even that out, but who's cooler?
Coy is cooler.
The one with the V8.
And if you roll coal in your gas, something's wrong.
Oh
All right,
man,
Jeremy.
Ben does work at a Brodozer shop now. He's talking about rolling coal as if that's cool.
No, I was just saying you roll coal in a diesel versus a gas.
So the next thing kind of going on the cost a little bit more, as I was talking about cost to go ahead and upgrade. So in the Jeep Wrangler, it's basically a $6,000 upgrade above the base model. So that's a 17% more that's 17% of the base model cost. So the way that breaks out is it's $3,500 for the engine and like $2,500 for the transmission that you have to put in for it. So you're just going to end up paying a little bit more for going with the diesel model versus that gas model.
On new vehicles, yes.
And can you get a diesel and an actual base, or does it actually have to be a better package to get a diesel on the Wrangler, since that's the...
You can get it in an actual base. The only upgrade that you need is that transmission.
So you can get a sport model with a diesel?
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting. That's cool.
I did not know that.
How about on the Gladiator? Could you get a Gladiator Sport with a diesel?
I didn't go look at the Gladiator.
That'd be interesting.
And I will preface it by saying the builder did not let me build a base model diesel.
Right. This is the same builder, by the way, that allows you to buy the base model that doesn't actually exist anywhere. So
Yeah. Any rebuttal to that, Coy?
it's hard to rebuttal just straight up numbers. I can't
Yeah.
say much. They do cost more. That's a fact. So I can't.
Well,
But what
as the comments down here from Brett says, cost doesn't matter. So to some people, it just doesn't.
It's just money.
Just money.
Did you, Aaron and Andy? Did you have any rebuttal to cost?
To cost,
No, not really.
I think you should be able to pay with returnable beer bottles, but what do I know?
I think you can in Oregon
Yeah, you're right. Probably can.
eventually.
I'll say this: you get what you pay for, and when you get a diesel, you get a lot.
It
And-
just
Andy-
depends on what you're getting. I mean, it
Yeah.
just depends on what you're buying. Like we're talking brand new $55,000-$60,000 Jeeps with very amazing turbo diesels. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna poo-poo them at all. I have 3 turbo diesels, and the most expensive one cost me $16,500. Now, I am also a fringe lunatic, and I fully admit that. So, but like my little Pajero over this shoulder, that was like a $4,500 car, and we drove it all the way up to the Arctic Ocean in the wintertime. It's also slow, I mean, I'm looking on the show notes here. I'm sure there's something about performance on here, but anyway, I can tell you, newer diesels are quite a bit more peppy than my 91 Mitsubishi Pajero over here. So
it jumps into some other things, but you get a lot with like the Wranglers. You get more horsepower, or you get a lot more of that low end torque, which is a lot
Yeah,
more
You're
response.
jumping ahead there.
But that's what
Yeah,
you're
you're
getting
jumping
for
ahead,
that
Ben.
money. You're getting that for that
Stop.
money. So yeah, I stop in there.
Okay.
So
So
I'll just say the cost, while it is more, what are you gonna do to upgrade your gas Wrangler? I mean, as far as performance, you're gonna buy a $9,000 supercharger because, like, obviously you can get a Hemi and put it in it or something. But I say the diesel's upgradability is one of its strong points. They love to be chipped. They got that Nagasaki noisy boy, the old Wuhan windmill. You could crank the boost up on that Mongolian motor masher and just blast power, roll co, Shanghai cyclones just blasting like these things. When you have a
Man.
turbo on a diesel, it is the best.
yeah.
First of all, you run like that 3-inch massive exhaust, so everybody knows you're turbocharged. Big straight pipe. You could roll coal anytime somebody walks behind you. You just mash it, just dump that black smoke right in their face. You live in Oregon, you got all these pesky bicyclers going around.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh
You're on
boy.
the OPDR backcountry route, and there's a lot of mosquitoes around camp. Fire up that diesel, put it on the high power tune, and just bounce it off the limiter a couple times.
Oh man.
But all joking aside, the ability to just upgrade turbos and chip things that are diesel is, even in the sports car realm, it is really hard to beat the cheap power adders. When I say cheap, I don't mean actually cheap, but your horsepower per dollar when you're upgrading the power in a diesel is a lot better than almost any gas engine.
Yeah, I'm gonna again rephrase, or not rephrase, but reiterate on new diesels. Like when I got my first turbo diesel, a freaking 88 horsepower turbo diesel, non-intercooled Mitsubishi Delica Star Wagon. My buddy's like, dude, you can throw a sweet tune on it. I'm like, nope, no computer. Sorry, there's no computer on this thing. A sweet tune is going to be like tuning a carburetor. So,
I mean, to be fair, that's literally a tractor engine. But
true. That's true.
if you start looking into it, guys throw another injector on those and crank them. Like, it's not undoable, and you can still anything
That
that's
is true. That is
turbocharged,
true.
if the block can handle it, you can add some. You can throw numbers at it. Like
Right.
it's
You're totally true. That's totally true. You just need to know what you're doing. It's not just throwing a chip on it. So
no, the newer stuff you can basically just chip and light mods, exhaust and intake, and literally gain 100 horsepower, sometimes more.
right.
Or is
Scott,
it
you got a
rebuttal
rebuttal
time?
to the
Yeah.
yeah, dude.
Well, I
Ben,
will say, that the the best way to know if a guy doesn't have a girlfriend is he rolls coal. So yeah,
Bravo.
he spends a lot of time by himself. That's pure frustration come out of the tailpipe.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah. But
I
beyond
love it.
beyond that, the upgradability thing is actually interesting because it's really only the full-size trucks that tolerate it well. That's one of the things that we encounter all the time is that a full-size truck, especially something that's a 3,500, 2,500, they're designed from the factory to tow an enormous amount of weight. So they have a built-in reserve capacity. They're driving around at 7,000 pounds and they're designed to tow 30,000 pounds. So there's a much larger radiator, a much larger transmission, axles. It's all designed for an extremely heavy load. So if you've got a guy that wants to upgrade a full size, it's probably going to be fine. But upgrading a Wrangler with a 3-liter turbo diesel or upgrading a light duty vehicle with a turbo diesel, it's usually not a good idea. The transmission's usually not up to it. The intercooler is normally not up to it. Radiator. We were towing actually an old school Brute. So we were towing an old Brute with a Cummins in it with a new Gladiator. And that new Gladiator got hot all the way back. So any hill, it got hot. And that was stock. So a full-size truck.
Gladiator?
It was diesel Gladiator. So a full-size truck, I think that you've got a lot of upgradability potential. Any of the small displacement turbo diesels, small vehicles, small grill, small radiator, I don't think the upgradability stands the test. So
Also, like we got a comment here from Dakota Todd. He says that modern diesels are becoming increasingly harder to modify, if not illegal. So I know that the EPA has been coming down hard on a bunch of the tuners out there and things like that. So in fact, I've shared a couple months ago that I was trying to get my exhaust, a couple leaks in my exhaust fixed up, and my truck doesn't have any catalytic converters in it. And multiple shops turned me down and said they wouldn't even touch my truck. They wouldn't let it on their premises because if the EPA found out it was there and if they were working on it, that they would be getting like a $50,000 fine for working on my truck. So, yeah.
All right. So,
all right, Scott, you're up.
Yeah.
Nope, Scott's up.
Yeah, the DEF thing is a real issue. It's a real issue because of availability, especially in remote regions. And it's also a real issue around temperature. We did a trip up to the Arctic Ocean several years ago with AEV, and we had all of the big diesel Rams. And you pretty much can't shut them off at those temperatures. They don't tolerate it very well. But the bigger issue is you got to find and you got to pour DEF at minus 30, minus 40. And they may have low temperature diesel that'll run at those temperatures, but you can't find DEF very easily that will run at those temperatures. So finding DEF and dealing with those low temperatures, that's definitely a problem. And I find it all the time with my modern diesel. I'm constantly running out of DEF. I'm constantly looking for it. It's really nice now that you can get DEF at the pump at some of like the Flying J's and stuff, but you're constantly messing with buying DEF, finding DEF. So I think it's definitely the one big downside of diesel, current modern diesels, is the whole DEF thing. The regen is no big deal. You know when it's going to happen. It's usually not the end of the world. But the DEF is definitely an issue with modern diesels. So
yeah.
With the
go ahead.
With the regen, having been working for companies that have had trucks with the regen, it was a bummer because sometimes you got to your location and it's still doing the regen mode and you don't know how long it's going to do the regen mode. So the truck is still running. You can't shut it off. And sometimes you're off pavement with this truck that's doing a regen mode. And when it's doing that, it's superheating the exhaust. So you have to make sure you're not parked somewhere that you're going to catch something on fire underneath your rig.
Oh, interesting.
So,
you can shut it off while it's in mid regen. You shouldn't do it a lot. like in a row. Like you need to eventually let it finish its regen, but you can shut them off mid regen. I do it all the time.
Yeah, and it seems like that the manufacturers have figured it out, and they just run the regen when you're going down the highway. It's like the car, it knows your speed, and I haven't had one do it at low speed in town yet. It doesn't mean that they won't, but I've only experienced it on the highway.
So
This
on
could
like
be because they were
larger,
delivery trucks.
yeah, on
Makes
like
sense.
delivery trucks and larger trucks, they really like to regen whenever you come to a stoplight, so it just chokes you out. It's like being in a small room with no fan. You're just sitting there in your own filth. That's what it feels like.
Well, I love the fact that I was put on a rebuttal for this. Like, what am I supposed to say? Yeah, Def is awesome. I mean, like, yeah, it's awesome when you run out, and you run out and your car goes in a limp mode. I totally deserve it because I'm a self-loathing individual. So, like, okay, I can't. I have no rebuttal against this. I'm gonna tell you a quick story, much like Scott was saying. I was in Dawson City, up in Canada, and on the Alcan 5000, and there was a team that had a brand new GMC Sierra AT4 with the diesel, and they were almost out of DEF. There was no place in town that had DEF at that time of night, and they didn't know what they were going to do. And because if they went into limp mode, they're hosed, right? So what you do when you're in Dawson City is you go to the local bar and you see if there's anybody at the local bar that happens to have any DEF. And sure enough, there's going to be somebody at the local bar that has a box of DEF, and they're going to give it to you for free. And what you do is you leave a $50 bar tab for the person who gives it to you. So true story. That's exactly what happened to our friends who had the AT4. You just don't want to get stuck. You don't want to get stuck in remote spots. You don't want to get stuck anywhere without it. So my rebuttal is no rebuttal.
I'll jump in on that rebuttal a little.
Oh, go ahead. Tell me sing the virtues of diesel exhaust fluid.
Well, first of all you pansies out there who aren't deleting your DEF, get on it. Get on the show here.
Screw the alphabet boys.
Oh, hey, hold on a second. Somebody's at the door. Oh, it's the EPA. Oh.
Second of all, at a certain point, the whole DEF thing, if you're going to run a diesel rig with DEF, I can't speak for every single diesel vehicle, obviously, but I do run a lot of full-size stuff with my job. And the DEF tank will last like 4 fuel tanks. Like, so you get an insane amount of mileage out of that little tiny DEF tank. I mean, you'll go 1,000 miles before you need to refill your DEF. And at a certain point, it's kind of on you if you're going to have a diesel rig. Like, yes, it uses DEF. Whether you got it, if it's, truck, you just keep a little jug in the back, or actually just plan ahead. Like, I mean, I don't have a lot of problems adding DEF. It's not that huge of a deal. My biggest problem with DEF is getting it on my hands because it makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, and by the way, after this show, I'm going to make a meme about Def Leppard and do something funny. So
Coy, your rebuttal is it's not really that bad.
Well, my rebuttal is you've chosen a diesel vehicle that needs DEF.
Yeah.
And you've also chosen not to delete your DEF system like a patriotic red-blooded American should. So now it's on you to keep up with your DEF system and go ahead and add 2.5 quarts every 1,200 miles.
So on top of, so now what I'm hearing is you got to pay more money to just make it, to get rid of that inconvenience.
Look,
when you should have just bought a gas model to begin with.
You're talking to guys that modify their vehicles for fun.
Right, but that's for fun. Usually you're adding capability, you're adding power or something like that. But you're not really. You're just taking away a terrible thing.
I just wish I had a vehicle that ran on nothing but DEF.
The DEF system, it's like a tax return. You got to add, you're sitting here trying to add all this stuff to get your income down so you pay less taxes. The government jumped in and screwed you over. Same with diesels. Like, that's not the diesel engine's fault. That's the government's fault. Like, blame the government and be a patriot and take that out.
Well, now I think we've come to a point we can both agree on. Blame the government.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
Andy, you're
I'm
up.
going to move on. We're going to move on to the pros of diesel, which is engine longevity. And there are fewer things that wear out on a diesel, right? Like clearly, like this thing, right? This looks to be a Cummins engine, and that thing with the stuff on it. I don't know. That's not going to wear out. No, honestly, there's no spark plugs, there's no distributor cap, there's no spark plug wires. There's fewer things to go wrong. Yes, there's a complicated injection pump, some of that stuff, but they're also known to go ridiculous amounts of miles as long as you treat them right. So I personally have been very happy with the performance and the longevity of my diesels, all which are pretty low mileage actually. So anyway,
Like the one with the cracked block.
all right. That was my fault. That was my
Okay.
fault. That was a failed thermostat. I should have changed the thermostat out. The thermostat got stuck, and when it opened up, it shot cold water into the block and cracked the block. That is nobody's fault but this guy right here. So that has nothing to do with it. That's a lack of maintenance. Also my fault.
Okay.
That could
Well,
happen
so that's
to any engine, though. That's not a diesel.
That is not a diesel thing at all. At all.
Okay. So, well, that's part of my rebuttal is if you don't perform the costly maintenance, you're not going to get the life out of the engine. In fact, you might split your block, Andy.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. Short trips will shorten the life of your engine and possibly clog up your exhaust systems if you aren't getting your regens or whatever out. If you're not getting your exhaust hot enough to burn out that soot, you can clog things up.
On new diesels.
Yeah, there you go, on new diesels with complicated exhaust systems. And then my last part here is that some people, I won't name any names, but some people expect their diesels to be tougher because it's a diesel, and so they're going to treat it harsher, and they're like, yeah, we don't need to do all that maintenance. It's a diesel, and it's a diesel, so I can tow. I know it says I can only tow 25,000, but I'll show you. I'm going to do a video on YouTube, and I'm going to tow 55,000 pounds or something like that. So some people just expect too much out of their diesels, and they don't treat them fairly. Any other rebuttals for longevity?
Yeah, I think the biggest rebuttal is the fact that they're expecting too much performance out of them now. When you look at that older Cummins or you look at an older 7.3, these were fairly detuned. They were designed for longevity. If you look at a Land Cruiser with a normally aspirated 1HZ, it's designed to run 500,000 miles. These modern diesels, when you want to get 1,000 foot-pounds of torque out of something, you're going to be turning all the screws to it. So I don't believe that the longevity argument plays out at all anymore, unfortunately.
Interesting. I think that's a really interesting point. I also would love to know. I know there's a couple of Australians that are watching. Like for instance, in other markets where there's lots and lots of diesel options out there, if they feel the same way about diesel, or if it's just like, yeah, I don't know, it's not that big of a deal. Like, but I think that's a really good point, Scott.
Yeah, I think it's just the reality of maximizing performance now. So
I agree with what you're saying, Scott. But do you think if you just put a gas, we just took a 2500 Ram with the diesel stock versus gas, and we pulled identical loads and did the same, you don't think the diesel would would last longer than a gas one?
Well, the Ram is probably the last one that's true for. I think if you took a 7.3 gasoline Ford, so their new Godzilla motor, and you put it against their Power Stroke, I think you're probably dealing with the same longevity. I think Ram is one of the last ones that has additional capacity built into the powertrain. If you were to look at a 5.7 Land Cruiser against the 4.5 liter twin turbo, people are getting essentially the same life out of those two engines.
I tend to think that in the United States we romanticize the diesel. It was not lots of things aren't available with diesel engines other than full-size trucks for the most part. The occasional Volkswagen that went to like court and stuff like that. But I do think that here in the U.S., we have this romanticized idea, like we always want what we can't have, right?
Yeah.
And you go to other countries, and their diesels are everywhere, and it's like not a big deal. I'm sure some people, I know people have their preferences there too, but I remember being at the SEMA show, and I was just happened to be walking through the Toyota booth, and somebody is talking to the poor PR guy and going, "I can't believe you guys don't bring a diesel over to the United States." And the PR guy finally said, "Listen, everybody in the U.S. says they want a diesel until they drive one, and then they're like, well, it's not as powerful as the gas off the line, and it's just there's the DEF thing and all this, and then Americans end up going, yeah, let's just give me a big V8 or a twin turbo 6."
No, I think you're absolutely right, Andy. Look at the Nissan Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Nissan actually gave us a small display, a 5-liter Cummins turbo diesel, in a Nissan, and nobody bought it.
Nope.
Nissan went out of their way to give us exactly what we asked for, and then nobody bought it. No, I mean it's our fault. Nissan,
it is.
Yeah. Enthusiast
Nissan
mentality, right? Enthusiast mentality. Everybody says they want it until it comes time to actually buy it. Everybody wants to do turbo diesel things until it's time to do turbo diesel things.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about noise, vibration, and harshness, and dirty diesels and stinky diesels. So I'm not sure why we even need to explain this point. It's pretty obvious. They stink. They're loud. They hashtag diesel clatter. You can smell them when they're driving in front of you on the interstate. And I mean, we talked about brodozers earlier. It's a problem.
Yeah,
You just don't have girlfriends.
Aaron's wife hated it so much she made him get rid of the LMTV.
Oh.
But I mean, some people don't mind that, and it's kind of like people who own Jeeps. They don't care about the noise that they hear inside the cab because there's not well insulated, because those door panels are just there to protect you from the elements. So, some people just don't care about the noise and the loudness, and that's all part of the experience of owning it.
I feel like this is like pointing at both Jeremy and me, but that's okay.
I would like to jump in on that rebuttal as well, Ben. I think any modern diesel, the noise and vibration is pretty moot point compared to a gas.
Yeah,
obviously, a lot of the older stuff, like speaking of like 4BTs and 6BTs, those motors are actually like they're commercial motors made to run at a constant RPM. So when you rev them up and down, yeah, they do vibrate. A lot of the old Toyota engines, they're commercial motors. They came out of pumps and things. Like, they weren't originally designed to be in a vehicle, but they just fit that well. So a lot of the old stuff does have a lot of vibration. The harmonic balancing is not that good, but anything modern, I feel like is as good as gas.
Right.
Yeah.
As somebody who owns 3 older diesels, all from the 90s, 2 of which are more like the 80s technology, I am a clean tailpipe guy. I want my tailpipe to be as clean as possible. I'm definitely not into the let's see how much smoke I can make kind of thing. And there are times, especially when it's cold, that the older diesels do make more smoke than I want to. I need to replace the glow plugs in the brand new diesel that I have in there. That's a long story, but anyway, I've got plugs. I need to do them because the pre-ignition isn't getting hot enough, and so when you start it when it's really cold, it spits out an embarrassing amount of smoke, and it's not good for the environment. I'm sure my neighbors don't like it. Keeps the mosquitoes down, but other than that, like seriously, like that's not what I want, but it's a trade-off.
I forgot to share our photo for this topic.
Oh boy.
I don't think the guy driving the truck or that guy have girlfriends, probably.
It's a guarantee.
Yeah, no kidding.
So for our listeners who won't see this video, it's some guy who's kneeling down in front of the tailpipe on what's probably a Dodge truck with a with a 4-inch tip on it, and someone's rolling coal into this guy's face. So they're
I
getting
mean, this is
a coal suntan.
This is a classic move, though. You're not like, hey, bro, can you? Did my mud flap come off? Can you get down see if all any of the bolts came out? And then you wait and you watch the mirror, and hopefully he's a good friend because your relationship can be strained after moments like that. But
Yeah.
Yes.
As Dakota Todd says, tastes like cancer.
Yeah.
Well, we should talk about one of those things that do matter off-road, and that would be that low-end torque. Because when you're crawling up those trails, you want that low-end power, right? That's where it matters, right, Jeremy?
Does, but you can make up for that with gearing too. So, is that all you got, Ben?
That's just, I mean, compared
Oh,
to
my-
gasoline, that low, less, better compression and all that,
Okay. All right. Let me tell you right now. It is so much better to have super low end torque with the diesel off road. As the owner of 3 4-wheel drive diesels, they may not have a whole ton of power, but all that power is way down low and super usable. Like I used to have a Suzuki Sidekick, right? It made 95 American horsepower at like 94,000 RPMs, right? I couldn't get up a sand dune unless I wound it up first. Whereas as the diesels, even our little diesel van, like it'll diesel up a sand dune without having to shift into third gear. Like it just goes up it because the power's all way down low and it's very usable. I will say I had my diesel at it's a 92 Mitsubishi Pajero diesel at Easter Jeep Safari last year. And you still do have to keep it in the power band, but that power band is much easier to get to than say the Sidekick where you have to just be screaming all the time. Horsepower numbers about the same between the Sidekick and the diesel, although the diesel made about 100 more foot-pounds of torque than that Sidekick did.
and part of the reason they have more torque is simply more rotating mass. So, and while that sounds bad, if you have a gas engine, when you're towing and stuff, you let off the gas, that rotating mass can actually slow everything down. You can brake with the transmission easier. And when you're in a low gear just crawling, you have that low end torque, but all that rotating mass, you come up to a little bump, it's like adding a heavier flywheel. It actually helps it just keep idling along. I knew a lot of guys with the Suzuki Samurais that would put an ultra heavy flywheel in them so that they could kind of keep them going without sending that thing to the moon.
Yeah.
But that is one of the downsides of a diesel is that it does not have anywhere near as effective compression braking as a gasoline engine, which is why diesels require an exhaust brake. So you can actually impart back pressure into the drivetrain. A gasoline motor does that without having to have an exhaust brake. So compression braking, which is why performance cars aren't diesel. I mean, they're that RPM range and that effective engine braking is why high performance motorcycles and high performance automobiles are gasoline, not diesel.
And I'm going to throw up some power charts here. So this is again from the Wrangler. So this is the diesel version. So as you can see, it kind of hits that torque there. So it gets to like 440 right around, let's say that's like 1300 RPMs, maybe 1400 RPMs. So I'm going to swap over to the gas model of the Wrangler, and you are hitting that peak torque earlier, but you're still getting up to 450 right around 3000 RPMs. So I would argue that.
Wait, which gas? This is
This
a
is
V6.
392. He's got a 392 chart up there. This is not the 3.8 and 6, or God forbid the 3.8 liter. So this is not a low output 3.8.
No, you're right. That is for the 392.
We tried, Jeremy.
I know we tried. I tried to get some shenanigans in there to try to rebut that point, but no, I mean it kind of is like some of the other ones. It's hard to argue against that low end torque value. I mean, you can just see how that power that power band right there where you actually have that 440 foot-pounds of torque is just kind of impressive.
Look at that flat torque curve.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, for how most people off-road, there's literally nothing more enjoyable than driving a diesel off-road because it's so easy to modulate the power, left foot braking. It's all so much more controllable. So now if you're going fast off-road, then, I mean, you don't see trophy trucks very often with diesel engines. So there's a reason for that.
Yeah. I guess the best rebuttal I can throw in there is you don't always necessarily want all that torque. So with our snow wheeling trip, this, a couple of weekends ago was actually a good example of it, where once you started to get up in that curve, and you just started to dig yourself in. So you might not always want that much torque.
Or weight over the front axle.
That's like saying, that's like saying this steak is too delicious for me. No,
my bicep is just so big I can't scratch the back of my head. It's so inconvenient.
Yeah, terrible. Oh God.
Oh, the vehicle with the least amount of horsepower and torque did the best on our snow run.
Yes. I mean, that just proves that you could manufacture a situation in which case any vehicle would be the better choice.
Wait.
Sure. Yeah.
What, mine had the least? I would have figured the JL
did the best on the snow run, though. I didn't know there was a winner and a loser. I mean, I knew there were some losers, but I didn't know we decided.
Well, also Ben got stuck in camp, so
I did not get stuck in camp.
Boy.
I was put in a trap. That's not fair.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, we've only got through half of our things here, so we're gonna have to do a lightning round for the last half. So
okay,
Jeremy,
okay.
you're up with
Let's do it.
Maintenance.
Yeah. So again, I picked the Wrangler for most of this comparison because that's where you have a newer vehicle that's really off-roady, in the same, in both motors. So I pulled some of the 5-year ownership numbers that Edmunds puts out. And so one of the things in there, they talk about maintenance. And so over the first 5 years, I'm sorry, this comparison is not with the Jeep because they didn't have numbers for the diesel Jeep. This is for a Ram 1500, the most off-roady comparison I could find. And so for the Ram 1500, you were expecting to have, for the diesel motor, about 4K in maintenance costs over that 5 years. For the gas motor, you're only looking at like 3.4K. So you're saving like $600 there. Plus, usually in just your normal oil changes, a diesel engine takes a lot more oil than a standard gas engine. I mean, so again, with that Ram 1500, you're talking about 9 quarts versus 5 quarts.
4 quarts is a gallon.
Yep. It takes
That's
a
what
whole
they tell
gallon
me.
more.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Just to add to the rebuttal, 4 quarts is a gallon.
Yeah.
Am I rebuttaling now? Or
Yeah, you're rebuttaling.
My rebuttal to that is you literally picked the Mercedes Common Rail diesel, the CRD. It's literally one of the worst diesel engines like ever made. So in that particular scenario, I'm not sure how many different diesel engines you had to look up to get there, but I'm assuming it was kind of like that 392 Wrangler situation.
It actually wasn't. The first one I looked at.
Well, those engines are hot trash, and anybody who's owned one will tell you they're horrible. So yes, there will be more maintenance costs because that thing's a lemon. That's why they only made that diesel in the 1500 a couple of years. Anyone else?
Moving on.
Older mechanically injected engines can run on a variety of fuel, especially like the older military rigs. You run those things on kerosene and all kinds of multi-fuel situations, which is kind of cool, especially if you're into that off-road, fight, go Wolverines thing. Also, a lot of the older mechanically injected diesels, they're almost EMP proof. If it's a manual, even if all the wiring's fried, you just have to get that thing turned on and you can push start them if you have enough guys. Like a lot of the crazy preppers look into like those old 6BT Dodge trucks because they're just about EMP proof.
I'm
Which
kind of
is-
wondering if my Pajero will run on like silage or something.
It may.
Yeah, I've got no rebuttal on that. I mean, we ran JP4 jet fuel in diesel trucks across Antarctica and Greenland, so you can run just about anything in them if you tune them right. So
I heard
that's a key. There you go.
I heard an old story back in the day when they were making those multi-fuels. Some of the engineers wondered if it would run on scotch, so they poured a bottle of scotch in it and realized they'd wasted a perfectly good bottle of scotch because it ran beautifully and it was wildly more expensive than diesel. But they'll literally run on anything that's flammable. Dang near.
and that's actually an interesting thing, and you guys may want to talk about that in your news for next week. But Cummins just announced a multi-fuel engine. It can run on diesel, it can run on unleaded, it can run on kerosene.
Gin.
They just announced it. It'll run on anything. So
That's super interesting. So I do have a small rebuttal about that, and it's just over the semantics of the verbiage here. It says older mechanically injected engine, so you can't just dump that stuff into a newer engine. It's got to have the capacity to process that stuff properly. Otherwise, it'll get clogged up in your injectors and things like that. It just isn't going to work. But on the pro side of that, Camp, Coy touched on it a little bit. So the LMTV that I used to own, you do an oil change in the field, and then you take that oil and you dump it into the fuel tank and you just burn it with everything else. So you don't have waste sitting around you've got to transport back or deal with. You just burn it as part of your daily routine. So
The circle of life.
kind of nifty.
I like
Yeah,
to point
so
out the same guys that think not deleting your DEF system is bad also are like, that's sweet that you can just dump transmission fluid into your diesel engine and drive it.
This reminds me, like, people ask me, like, what would be the first thing you did if you got a 3D printer? I'd say I'd print more 3D printers.
Yes.
Anyway, fuel availability.
Scott, you're up.
well, it's interesting. People will say yeah, people will say that diesel is the fuel to find when you're traveling in the middle of Africa or whatever, and you hear that all the time. If you find one fuel, you'll find diesel anywhere in the world, and that's absolutely not the case because most locals ride motorcycles. They don't drive expensive cars. If you can go to the most impoverished part of Africa or Asia or anywhere else, and you're going to find unleaded fuel. You're not going to find diesel in a lot of those small villages because they don't really have cars. They'll have motorcycles and tuk-tuks and other things like that, and those all run on gasoline. So, and then you also find it's difficult in developed countries because so many developed countries people run gasoline engine vehicles that you don't always find diesel at a pump. That has gotten a lot better, but it's still a factor. A lot of times you don't see diesel at a pump in the United States somewhere.
So I have the rebuttal on this one. So I'm going to say, what are most Go ahead.
Before your rebuttal, several of us in the Pacific Northwest know of a guy, and I just can't think of his name right now, a couple, and they have a Porsche Cayenne diesel, and they talk
Richard
about
and Dolores.
Thank you. Yeah, Richard and Dolores. And they talk about going to Baja all the time, but they choose not to go to Baja because ultra low sulfur diesel is not available in Baja at all, or not that they can find readily. So they can't make their trip down there with the vehicle they own because of that issue.
That's because they own a German vehicle. That's their problem.
I would also say that if you're running if you run out of fuel, so like you're running the Rubicon, you run out of fuel. I'd say it's very easy to find somebody who has spare gasoline that they'd sell you. But you're going to have to hunt and peck to find somebody who has any spare diesel on the trail.
So I'm going to say this. What do most tractors run on?
Diesel.
right? So
Yep.
when you're in a country that grows food, there's going to be diesel. Now, listen, I'm not gonna claim to have been to, I don't know, places that have
Guadalajara.
gasoline tractors a lot. I don't know, but in all honesty, like you could say that. I mean, there should be diesel a lot of places. Listen, I haven't been to Africa. I haven't traveled through Africa. I've heard Scott's argument from multiple people. He's talking with Dan Greck and some of the other people who've extensively traveled in Africa. I've heard that. Yeah, I've definitely heard the scooter argument, and I think it's probably a valid one. But I've also heard that diesel isn't really dead. But again, it's going to depend on whether or not you need that ultra low sulfur diesel like you do in Mexico. That you're not necessarily able to get it. So I have old diesels, and they'll run on anything. So
Yeah, if you've got a vehicle that requires ultra low, like 50 parts per million or less, yeah, you're in trouble going around the world. You can just about forget that. That's just not feasible. When we did the big trip with the Land Cruisers, we could take 500 parts per million diesel, and that was actually hard to find in certain parts of Russia. It's very difficult to find it in certain parts of Central America as well. So if you've got an older diesel, it's just not an issue. But if you need 500 parts per million or 50 parts per million diesel, you aren't going to find it in most of the developing world.
what did you do when you couldn't find it?
Well, we had to plan ahead. So like there were places where we had to carry additional fuel with us because there were parts of Siberia that didn't have it, or we would have to like fill up half of a tank and we had to change the filters much more often. This didn't have DEF, regen, or anything else, but those 500 part per million 4.5 liter Land Cruiser diesels, they were very sensitive to anything over 500 parts per million. So,
But you've got that fuel economy to get you to the next stop.
yeah, and big tanks too. We were really lucky. The one thing that helps is that even in developing countries, there's the affluent or there's the bureaucrats, and they want the new Mercedes. And the new Mercedes is going to need ultra low sulfur. So when you make it into the cities, you can find it anywhere in the world. It's just not a problem. But when you're in the middle of nowhere, it can be hard to find that diesel.
Yeah.
I know German diesels like not being able to go to Mexico because it needs the ultra low sulfur. I have noticed recently that Germany is dependent on fuel from outside sources a lot of times, so that just may be a German thing.
So going back to the pros here, higher resale value. Certainly, I would say in the United States that is a pro. There's this again this sort of exclusivity, if you will. I'm trying to think of the word which is escaping me, but this idea that diesel is something. Oh, it's something you want. You can't get it on everything, so we're gonna jack the price up. I can guarantee you that even in the world of crazy JDM 4-wheel drives, people want the diesel because diesel's like something unobtainium in a lot of things. So they certainly can have a higher resale value, and I think generally they do.
My rebuttal to that, I did a little research here, and I don't know much about the Touareg, but I do know that you can get it in diesel, and I kind of feel like that might be something people would choose for an overland rig or something like that. I think they're pretty capable vehicles, pretty complex but capable.
Have you ever met
And,
anybody with a overland Touareg?
Actually, no, I haven't. I've actually seen a lot more Cayennes
So what
than
would
I have
lead you to
Touaregs.
believe that? Just out of curiosity.
Maybe because I would own one. I don't know. It just popped in. I'm sorry,
The V10 diesel Touaregs were pretty awesome, but they haven't made a diesel in a while.
No, they haven't. So the TDI. So I did 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, 2012, the TDI was a $3,500 option, and now they on average sell for about $2,000 more for the TDI over the non-diesel options. And if you figure that $2,000 is 2012 money, with inflation, it's $2,450. So you do get a tiny bit more money. for a Touareg in diesel than you do for a gas Touareg. So I bumped it up a little newer. The first year of the Chevy Colorado, and I compared apples to apples here. So Z71 Colorado, 4-door, 4-wheel drive. If it's got 60,000 miles, the diesel one currently sells for $34,000, which I might add, they sold for $34,000 brand new, by the way, as a base price. And the gas one is also $34,000. So that's with 60,000 miles. If you get a 34,000 mile one, so a lot less miles for a 2016, it jumps up to $37,000 for the diesel or $37,000 for the gas motor. So at least in the Colorado, there's no benefit of resale with the diesel motor. Kind of interesting. So,
Was this in American dollars?
Yes, it was in American dollars, and that was searching all of the U.S. And also, just to note, the diesel option for the 2016 Colorado was a $3,730 option.
Yeah. Also, the Chevy Spark is also selling for $37,000 these days. So
I feel like you may be Googling yourself right a little bit on that, because if you were just to compare like a 7.3,
I only picked those two. I only picked those two vehicles, which are off-road.
Wild oddballs. But I mean, if you just picked any like 7.3 Ford diesel pickup and then picked the gas version, it's literally, you could buy like 3 gas trucks for the price of a 7.3 diesel. I mean, it's $10,000 difference.
bonkers.
That's true.
And you
That's
can do
true.
that.
But
Anything full size, you can pretty much do that with. It's nuts.
I'm not thinking people are taking their Ford F-350 dualies though out and wheeling them or doing the back road discovery routes with it.
Yeah.
Make a lot
There
of
are
them.
there are people that do, but
Not me.
no.
Not compared to the Colorado Z71s or the ZR2s. All right. Well, let's talk about cold weather issues then. So diesels, when they're cold, if I looked it up, I did some research, and they suggest that you plug your diesel in for your block heater if it's going to get below freezing. So that's 32 degrees Fahrenheit for us Americans and 0 degrees for everyone else in the world. Also, if it gets too cold, your fuel can wax up. I thought it gelled, but the actual science is that it waxes up and it causes crystals to form in your fuel filter. Oh, I forgot to share the picture for this one. Here's our picture. Check out those crystals. That almost looks like mashed potatoes in the fuel
Got
filter.
Totally.
That looks delicious.
Yeah. It's already got the salt and pepper on it and a little bit of gravy
Yeah.
left over.
Yeah. Nice
So,
little brown to it.
yeah, so the fuel can wax up, and you're not getting fuel flowing through that filter anytime soon. So you're kind of dead in the water. You can actually see that's looks like it's next to an early 2000s Ford. And then the last thing is just one faulty glow plug can prevent you from having your engine starting.
I'm gonna just say something here. Like, I took this Pajero right here up to Tuktoyaktuk, which is right here, and it was 42 below zero that morning, and that's a turbo diesel. Now I had to install 42 degrees below zero air temperature. We had installed a Webasto Thermotop Evo coolant heater. So that's basically a pump that circulates the engine coolant and heats it as it's doing so, draws fuel from the tank to do so, draws power from the batteries to power the pump. And it started just fine. But I will say, if we didn't have that at 42 below zero, we would have had to leave it run all night long. So
I got you. So complex parts on the diesel.
more
truck.
complex
Gotcha.
parts. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Upgrading a vehicle that you're already upgrading some more.
That is the part where you have to leave with those diesels plugged in to get them to start in the cold is wildly valid. The part about the fuel in most climates, unless you're getting just crazy insane, there are additives in the fuel for the climate you're in. So if you live in that area, you'll see the waxing or the gelling or whatever you want to call it of fuel a lot more commonly in like long haul truckers, because they might have gotten their fuel way back and then they drove to the next place, jumped in their sleeper overnight, all their fuel's gelled, but it's not the same blend as they're getting, 900 miles down the road where the weather's drastically different. So
And again, and you have to think about it like the DEF thing. I always have a can of Diesel Clean or Diesel 911 if I'm going to go into one of these crazy, ridiculous cold temperatures with any of our diesel stuff.
Do you also carry a can of ether?
You know what? I actually do, but I have a can of whatever the starter fluid is. I've never used it just because heating that stuff with glow plugs that get to 1,000 degrees, I just never think it's a good idea. So I don't know what I've never used it.
Yeah, the cold temps are a real issue for the diesels for sure. Like you can walk out to a Tacoma at -30 and not plugged in, it'll start up, but you couldn't do that with a Hilux or anything diesel from Toyota. Forget it.
Well, I guess we should talk about those higher payloads in towing because of that awesome low end torque that diesels get. Generally speaking, you get better tow ratings compared to their similarly sized gas powered vehicles, and the fuel efficiency that follows with it too.
Now, while I would probably agree with you if you're talking about a full size truck, if you're talking about something that's an off roader, you actually don't generally see much increase in towing capacity, and a lot of that is because the engine's not necessarily the limiting capacity of the towing. It's actually the braking system and all that. And in fact, in the new Wrangler, your towing capacity is actually just pegged at 3,500 pounds across the board, no matter what engine you buy.
And that's the limiting factor of the Wrangler.
If you buy the smallest engine, you get that. You still get 3,500.
Yeah, but
then,
what's your fuel economy while you're towing with that smaller engine versus that diesel engine?
Well, we're just talking about capacities here. We're not talking about economy right now.
Well, again, it's sort of one of these things. Like if you're buying a Wrangler to specifically tow with, then you should evaluate your life choices.
Yeah.
Wait, isn't that we're supposed to do as overlanders? Is overloaders? We got the big trailer behind us. We put all the gear inside.
I know you. Speaking of overloaders, the funny thing is actually in the Wrangler, if you buy the diesel model, you actually go down in payload capacity. So, in the diesel model, you get like 1,136 pounds. In the V6 model, so I didn't even go with the smallest engine. You get 1,204 pounds. So that represents you get 6% more payload if you go with the non-diesel model.
You do keep jumping back to the Wrangler though, but a lot of people are going to be looking into diesels. I mean, if next time you're at some kind of rally, there are plenty of full size diesels. Some of those big Mitsubishi camper van things. I don't remember. They make them over here in Bend, Oregon. I can't remember the name of the
Earth Cruiser, yeah.
Yes, like Earth Cruisers, and a lot of those. There's another. What's the other one that's always big Ford? Seems
Earth
like
Roamers,
Global
Expedition Vehicle.
I know you keep going with the little tiny things that are off-roaders, but obviously we're talking diesels. There's also larger off-roaders. So, and those will almost primarily be diesel, and there's a reason why. So, I mean, they need a tow of this massive weight. And sure, you're not going to be crawling Moab in your Earth Roamer, but it has a place in overlanding.
Well, and on the Gladiator's a great example. So to get max towing, max payload, you have to go V6. And you can't buy a current Earth Cruiser in diesel. They're all gasoline now.
So jumping over to the con side, vehicle availability. So just I love that one. Especially in our market, you just do not have that many options where you can for the same vehicle, go with a diesel versus a gas model, especially in the kind of the off-roading models. You just do not see them nearly as much.
Corey, what do you think?
Oh, I was waiting for anybody else to jump in on that. I fully agree that's true, but luckily in the current market, you're going to be waiting a year on whatever you ordered anyways. What's a year and 3 months? So, woohoo. Like, if you're waiting for everything and you want a diesel, why not wait a little longer for the one you want? Like, it's not in markets before where you had to actually look to find it. I'll give you that. And if we're talking used, there's a lot of used, where it's harder to find a diesel. I give you that one too. But in the new market, dude, if you're waiting 2 years for your Bronco, you can wait however many months for whatever diesel version of something you want. Anyone else?
I'm going to wait till we get to parts availability to talk on that one.
So I guess it's safer fuel for me then.
Look at that chart.
I don't know.
That's a chart, man.
I don't know what we're looking at here.
It's the
It's showing flash
explain.
points of gasoline versus diesel.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with science, right?
Yeah, you can pull up to
We
the
sure
pump and run
try.
your truck.
It's a losing argument every time.
I drive commercial vehicles a lot, and I have an experience that scared the daylights out of me. I was driving a commercial, large Kenworth truck. I had just filled it up the morning before and then took off the next morning. It's going to just run not that far. As I'm driving, I noticed little spots on the windshield like a mist, and I was like, I thought it was supposed to be clear out. And as I'm looking through my windshield up at the sky, thinking, man, I can see all stars. This is weird. I don't know where this rain would be coming from. A car pulled up beside me and was going nuts on his horn. And then I was really wondering, now I was really confused. And then I looked beside me and I could just see something spraying down the side of my truck. And it was a dry day or night, I should say. I was on a major highway and couldn't pull over. I had to go about another 5 miles to get to a spot where I could pull over. I jumped out of the truck, immediately saw enormous amounts of diesel fuel spraying from under the hood of my truck. But the way the road was angled, that diesel fuel was running across the road. I knew there's a rest stop about a mile ahead, so I jumped in. I started smashing gears to get there and coasted in, killed the motor. And I dumped about 40 gallons of fuel in that 6 miles. Most of that fuel was underneath my truck, straight across the exhaust system.
Whoa.
There was somehow no fire. With a gas engine, I do not believe that I would have survived that event, because by the time I got there was actually about an inch of fuel in the floorboard of this truck.
Whoa.
So it was a cool experience. And I don't know how the EPA did not show up, but a mechanic came and fixed me on the road and I left.
I've had that same experience, Coy, in one of my modified cars, and it was a gasoline car, and it was spraying gasoline under the hood. So, yeah, definitely not a safe situation.
Was there a fire?
Nope,
No?
there wasn't. Luckily, on that type of car, the fuel rail is towards the rear, so this is a front-wheel drive vehicle, so it's spraying fuel towards the firewall rather than towards the exhaust at the front sides. So I didn't catch on fire.
Yeah, I've got the rebuttal on this one. So, yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. No, there is no rebuttal. To use Andy's phrase, there's no excuse for physics. So it is what it is. This is pure science. So
I do feel like this is a really obscure thing. Like, how often does this happen on vehicles? I mean, listen, everything you're driving is flammable at some point, right? I mean, do I worry more about driving a gasoline vehicle than I do a diesel vehicle because of the potential of leakage? I don't.
Not really, yeah.
I don't either. The part that I think about is when I'm carrying extra fuel.
Sure.
That's where I mostly think it's where the safety factor comes in. And then when
Right.
you're at camp and you've had a few pops, and then pretty soon you're putting a little gas on the fire, diesel's much better than gas. I've never seen a diesel can explode in somebody's hand. I've had a gas can go off in my head, so that's
Yeah.
when it starts getting into a container is where I feel like the diesel is miles safer.
Yeah.
Not
There's
so
a difference between flammability and explosiveness.
Combustibility.
Thank you, Scott. Combustibility and flammability. Both diesel and gasoline are flammable, but the combustibility points or combustion points are different.
Yeah. All right, bring us home, Scott, with this last one.
Parts availability. Well, you guys, thanks, guys. Well, so there is a big problem with parts availability with diesels, and that's on these import JDM trucks. I've had a couple of them. It's not like I've got a 300 TDI Defender. It's super hard to find parts, so it's not an easy thing. It's gotten a little bit better because there's a lot more of them in, but yeah, try to find parts for a diesel Pajero. You got to wait for it. So, and even that's difficult. Fortunately, there's some good folks in Japan that are kind of specialize in these things that you can develop relationships with, but be prepared to wait for months before your vehicle gets running again sometimes.
So when you own a diesel vehicle, especially a diesel JDM, or if you're a hoarder like I am and have 3 of them, you end up learning how to cross-reference the crap out of everything. Now, that works really well for suspension and brake parts and so on and so forth. And you go, oh, yeah, hey, all these calipers and pads and stuff are the same as a US Montero or whatever it was. But yeah, the diesel stuff is going to have to come from somewhere else. Now, if you're in the United States of America like I am, our neighbors to the north in Canada are able to get these vehicles 10 years before we are, since the United States has a 25-year import rule and Canada has a 15-year import rule. Therefore, they're able to get the JDM goods 10 years before us and also have a 10-year cache of parts. So when I need parts, I generally reach out to the fine folks at Coombs Country Automotive on Vancouver Island, who generally have whatever I need, which is great. Shout out to Coombs. But with that being said, there are things that I do need to buy that have to come from the Philippines or Japan, sometimes the UAE. And that is gonna take a while. But for what it's worth these days, I obtained a timing belt and water pump kit for a 1992 Mitsubishi Pajero in 5 days. I can't send my mother a postcard in Wisconsin in 5 days. So things have gotten better, but you're not going into AutoZone asking for cylinder 3 on a Mitsubishi Delica Space Gear. That's all I got to say.
And also we keep jumping to world market to American market, depending on what argument is better for us at the moment. Depending on your diesel Pajero may be hard to get parts for it here, but in the right market in another country, it would be the opposite, the inverse, if you brought a gas Montero or whatever over there. So you would be way better off having your diesel one, Asia or Taiwan or someplace or wherever those are more common. I mean,
Australia,
the world kind of runs on diesel
when
you look at a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, overnight parts from Japan, exactly. So just got to watch my manifold pressure.
Warning.
Yes, warning. Yeah. Well, like we said at the beginning, we were chosen sides. We had parts to argue. No one's being declared a winner in this, but and we've all got our thoughts. As you can see, we immediately crossed over to the other side, almost everybody, for some of these points. So we all go both ways. So real quick before we end the show, why don't I have everybody talk about what diesel vehicles they currently own or have owned. So Scott, you want to run us through what you got?
Yeah, currently, I mean, I've had a lot of diesels, but currently we've got a Cummins 3.0 powered. Well, there's the GMC AT4 with a 3-liter turbo diesel I drive daily. So it's a nice little truck.
There's a payload picture for you too.
Yep. Yeah, right at the limit there. But I do love that motor. It's my favorite thing about the vehicle. That engine's just made me a total believer. So, and then we've got a diesel Brute. So that's a 3-liter Cummins powered Jeep Brute AEV conversion Brute. So that drives great with that motor in it. And then a 200 TDI Defender with a 5-speed manual. So little turbo diesel. Oh, there's those XELs.
I
There they
saw
are.
that in the snow. It looked like they were actively trying to kill you.
Yeah, that truck was actually sliding away from me as it was parked.
As the pictures being taken, it's just roll. It's just,
Yeah, it is totally. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I was actually, that's why I took the photo. I had to walk home. I couldn't go any further.
It's good knowing you. Yeah.
You
How
wanted
about
the
you,
geeks
Andy?
to-
What do you got?
Oh, yeah.
here?
So this is my 1992 Mitsubishi Pajero XR2 that swapped in a Honda D4BF 2.5 liter, which is basically the same thing as a new Mitsubishi engine. Just bought the tooling. So, but that came with a 2.5 liter Mitsubishi 4D56, but now it's got the Hyundai version in it. And then I have a 91 Mitsubishi Pajero XP narrow body. That's got the original 2.5 liter turbocharged intercooled Mitsubishi 4D56 in it. That's the one that we took up to the Alcan 5000. 94 Mitsubishi Space Gear. This has got the 2.8 liter 4M40 turbo diesel. It's quite a bit more powerful than the other vehicles. And before this van, I actually had a 1989 Mitsubishi Delica Star Wagon, which had a non-intercooled turbo diesel 2.5 liter that was actively being passed on the highway by glaciers. So
I got to ask Andy. You guys have mentioned that you're running the Alcan in the
Yes.
summer coming up.
Yep.
What are you driving?
Not sure yet. To be determined. We've got a couple of the Delica or the Gray Pajero would be ready to go. We have a gasoline powered vehicle that'd be probably ready to go, but you never know. We'll see. Might have something else. So
You gonna drive the Yaris?
thought about lifting up the Yaris and turning it into Le Rally Yaris, but
Yes.
that's probably
Do it.
more
I'll
work than I
help
want to do right now. So we'll see.
How about you, Coy? What are you daily driving for a diesel?
I currently own myself. I do not own any diesels, but I daily drive many commercial, large diesels of varieties. I operate diesel equipment. The smallest diesel engine I'm generally running is in like a Ford F450, and it just goes up from there. So, I don't do a lot of off-road. Yeah, I don't do a lot of off-roading.
You're off the
in my
road in this
diesels.
picture right here.
No, I'm in gravel, but yeah.
Yeah.
I cross
Right.
state lines commonly, so with mine, so that makes me overlander, I think.
I don't own this anymore, but my heart is still attached to this LMTV. So here's a grand picture of it stuck in my field because I couldn't find any other good pictures of it, any good side profile pictures. But I owned a 1998 Stewart and Stevenson M1078, which is the 2-axle 4-tire version instead of the 3-axle 6-tire version.
Thing's awesome.
Had a cat motor in it, 6.6 liter turbo diesel. So it, as you can see, it was terrible if things got slippery. So I winched that out with my Warn winch on my Nissan Frontier, and it just sucked it right out of the mud. But that thing did terrible in the snow. It did terrible in the mud. There was no lockers on it, so, and I didn't have the XZLs either, Scott.
How did the LMTV do in the snow?
Once you lost traction.
You were talking about the LMTV did terrible in the snow, not your Nissan. I just...
ouch, man, that hurts. Will you wait till I get some better tires, Coy? You wait. I'm gonna have that thing shipped to Antarctica or something just to show you. Yeah.
Well, let us know what you think about diesels and if you have a favorite diesel vehicle, and we'll read them on the air in upcoming episodes.
And Scott, where can our listeners find you now?
You can check us out, Overland Journal on Instagram or Expedition Portal on Instagram. Same with Facebook. And then you can get to us at expeditionportal.com or subscribe to the print magazine at overlandjournal.com.
And what about that podcast you're doing?
Yeah, we do the Overland Journal podcast, which we're having a great time with. We need to get you guys on there. That'd be a lot of fun to bring things full circle.
Oh, you don't want us.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we should just do an entire episode where we bust on overlanding. I love it.
Overloading. Yes.
We could just call the whole thing the Overlander episode.
There you go.
And Coy, what about you? Where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on all the social media apps that are any relevance. The Horsepower Hour is the podcast we do. And yeah, check us out.
And Andy, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me personally at Crankshaft Culture on Instagram, on Facebook, Crankshaft Cult on Twitter. We have the YouTubes also. But of course, Warren Industries is warren.com, at Warren Industries on Instagram. The TikTok we just started. And then we're facebook.com/Warren fans on Facebook.
Can we find you on the TikTok?
Maybe.
Yeah, yours is good.
Yeah, it's mostly guitar stuff and me
I like
being
it. It's
a
good.
dork. So,
It's
which is
good.
what I do best. So,
Do you do the Warren TikTok though?
I have started the Warren TikTok account. I haven't gotten any dances down yet, but I have uploaded some content. So,
Do you show all the great winches there?
all the great winches, all of them.
Did
The winches
people
of
get
TikTok.
mad that you're using?
The winches of TikTok. Hashtag the winches of TikTok.
People get mad that you're using a Chinese app, and all the
Ah.
winches come from the same factory in
You're,
China.
you're killing me. You're killing me. I did find it, by the way, not going to go into this, but I did find a website that had a whole bunch of our images and we're peddling their products. Had photoshopped our images off last week. That was great. So, gotta love it.
I'll be waiting for your letter in the mail, your cease and desist. Well, we want to thank everybody once again for hanging out for this extremely long episode, but a lot of worthwhile information. I'm super excited with all the work you guys did on digging into your facts and all the rebuttals and things like that. This was a really fun episode. Hopefully we can find a topic to do this with in the future, maybe electric vehicles. So appreciate you guys. Make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. Love that you're watching us live. Still have a lot of people still watching us, even though we're almost at the 2-hour mark. Make sure you're sharing us with your friends to help us grow. And God bless America and Ukraine.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren Medical Gear Outfitters and Colby Valve to see all their great gear. We're a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a comment or question? Send it to us through our webpage at firearmsradio.net or through our social media channels by searching for Off-Road Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, be safe, and courteous. Thanks for listening.